Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City of Sherwood Bond Initiative Town Hall. My name is Greg Clark, and I'll be the moderator for tonight's discussion. I've had the privilege of serving with both Mayor Virginia Hillman Young and Mayor Mary Jo High Council as chairman of the Sherwood Mayor's Prayer Breakfast, and counted a privilege to serve with both, and I'm glad to be here tonight. Full disclosure, I've already fielded a couple of questions tonight myself. One of the most common being, how did you get roped into this? But like you, I hope to walk away from here tonight with as much information as possible to be a more informed voter. And I thank you for being here, taking time to be here and help us keep tonight's discussion respectful and informative and focused on accurate information for Sherwood voters. And I would ask at this time if you would pray with me for this evening. Father in heaven, we thank you for the sense of community that we have here in the town of Sherwood. We know, Father, that through your prophet Jeremiah, you gave us directions to seek and pray for the shalom of the city in which we live. For in doing so, we will have shalom. We thank you for the character of the citizens in this community. We thank you for our leaders. And we trust that together tonight with your blessing, we can build a strong and prosperous community in which to raise our families. Thank you for Sherwood, Father, is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. This town hall is designed to provide clear factual details about the Sherwood Bond Initiative and to answer your questions directly. The goal tonight is transparency, not debate. So here's a quick overview of how the evening will go. We'll begin with a brief presentation and opening remarks by our panel, followed by a structured question and answer session. These questions submitted in advance will be read first, so we can go through as many topics as possible. After that, we'll open the floor for additional questions at the microphone, particularly for anything that hasn't yet been addressed. And we just ask that all questions remain brief, respectful, and focused on the bond initiative itself. Now I'd like to introduce our panelists who will be sharing their expertise in answering the questions. Our Mayor Mary Jo High Council, City of Sherwood. Brian Carney, Vice President of Industrial Services, Baldwin and Shell Construction Company. Chris East, Principal Architect, Cromwell Architects and Engineers. Leanne Burnett, Executive Vice President and Head of Public Finance, Stevens Incorporated. Captain Jamie Hartman, Support Services Commander, Sherwood Police Department. And Blake Calloway, Director of Sherwood Parks and Recreation. Please remember that this is a question and answer session, not a debate or a public comment forum. Again, we kindly ask everyone to refrain from interruptions or commentary so we can make the most of our time together. Any questions that we don't get to tonight will be answered in writing and shared on the city's official website at cityofsherwood.gov. Tonight's event is also being live streamed on the city's YouTube channel and will be available afterward on official city platforms, including Facebook and the city website. Once again, thank you for being here and for your engagement in Sherwood's future. Let's get started with our opening presentation.
Yes, I'm going to run through this as quickly as possible. I know that there are still some people who are not aware of all these projects, how this works, and so forth. So I'll run through this quickly. Certainly if y'all have any questions afterwards, please come up and ask or reach out to me. So basically, we really wanted to touch on multiple areas in the city. In the northern part of our city, we've got the Sherwood Park, New Animal Services, the Sherwood Forest, and Henson Park. This is the land that we currently own. It's 13 acres. This is where the current library, the Amy Sanders Library, is located. And this is after quite a bit of research, which you'll hear about. We determined that this would be the best buildable spot for the new animal shelter. This is how it would fit onto that lot. With this animal shelter, and I'll let you all read this, but basically you are talking about a huge expansion of the animal shelter with all the modern conveniences as well as best practices going into this. This is a floor plan of the animal shelter. Please note, all kennels are indoor, outdoor. There's a designated surgical room. There's true quarantine rooms, etc. And we can go into more detail because I could talk all day, as could Captain Hartman on this. This is what it would look like from the outside. Basically, trying to go along with the Amy Sanders Library. You want something that's also going to be attractive, just like that library. So that was the inspiration in terms of architecturally for this structure. It was also designed to build to last, even a tornado. Hinson Park, this is in the southern part of our city. This is near and dear to many of our residents' hearts, especially in the southern part of our city that walk this trail daily. I will tell you though, it's been around for quite some time, and it wasn't necessarily built to today's standards, would be the nicest way to say it, but also over time, you end up roots pushing things up, it gets undermined with the creek, etc. So now it has a lot of areas that are trip hazards that have become very narrow. And so we are talking about really engineering, doing this correctly, widening it out so that it can accommodate both pedestrians and cyclists. This will eventually be able to connect to the regional greenway. This is kind of some pictures of what it looks like today, and I would really suggest everyone go walk it. In the northern part of our city, Sherwood obtained this land, and this is being used currently to stage the road construction. Out of all of our projects, this would be the last project that we would undertake. And the reason for that is because first we need to complete the road. Then we would do this project last. With this project, we look to not only find ways to give new recreational opportunities to our residents with things such as pump tracks for little kids as well as adult and older kids, sand volleyball, competition level sand volleyball courts so that we can bring tournaments into our city. Also having some of the same amenities that we have in the other parts of our town, bringing out there with basketball, pickleball, and then certainly a signature park out there. There's parks for not only little kids with your rope courses, and there's a big circular swing set, the berms in which they can play in, but also a themed Castle Kingdom that will accommodate little and big kids, because after all, we are Sherwood, so certainly Old England goes along with that theme. This is designed to be a park that families can go to and could spend all day at. It has bathrooms, misting stations, walking bike path all the way around it, and so forth. We even have a concession stand so that when we have tournaments out there, we can also accommodate those needs as well. In the Sherwood Forest Complex, there will be multiple things. So first of all, the ball fields. And Blake in the questions will get into why this is important. But basically a revamping of the ball fields, new dugouts, new fencing, irrigation system, infield turfing, and full turfing for our Field 5, I believe, which is the one that the high school, Field 1 that the high school uses. This will actually put our high school having facilities that are equal to all the other schools in Pulaski County, both for training and for games. Also moving the softball field that the high schoolers use so that it's over next to the baseball field so that it's better for coaches, trainers, and most importantly, the parents who are there sometimes having to run, back and forth if they have kids both in softball and in baseball. This is Sherwood Forest, the area where we are at right now as you see it today. So you've got the existing building, the splash pad, the pavilion, and the Veterans Memorial. The inspiration for what I'm about to show you was the pavilion. The pavilion was built by A&P funds, beautifully done, beautiful inside, wooden ceiling. So we wanted this whole thing to look like it's supposed to be like a campus, like it was always supposed to be there, versus just, putting different types of style in and it not having a good cohesion. The Veterans Memorial would be moved over, and we have been assured that that can be done brick by brick, and we can make that now ADA compliant, of which it isn't now, and closer to parking, so that those visiting the memorial will have a much easier time in which to do it. Nothing affects the splash pad or the pavilion as it is today. However, this building would no longer be here, and moved closer towards the street is a new multi-use sports facility. And then behind, which, I'm sorry, would be kind of this way, thank you, would be the multi-use event center. There would be an additional entrance exit off of Maryland. In this multi-use sports facility, it can accommodate a basketball courts, 16 volleyball courts, and that was important because after doing the research, we found out that is what the standard is in getting the tournaments that are what's called the national qualifying tournaments, and those are the most sought after. It can also, all this space, the way it's designed, can flex into lots of things. It can also accommodate 24 pickleball courts. So Senior Olympics, for example, could now come, the pickleball portion, to Sherwood. It's currently in Cabot. It can also be used for wrestling, gymnastics, trade shows, cheerleading, dance, etc. It can flex, it's meant to flex into any number of spaces. This is what the exterior would look like. Utilizing a lot of the same elements and certainly a lot of the natural lighting. These pictures are taken from Game Time. We use these pictures so you can see the way in which the space works. Everything goes up into the ceiling. Your netting that divides up the courts, your basketball goals, etc. That's what allows for all that different flexing. And then your bleachers are portable, and they can be moved around depending upon whatever kind of configuration is needed. This is the multi-purpose event center. So this is the replacement of Sherwood Forest. Now, with this, it is designed so that it can be used in a bunch of different ways, and it can flex into different ways. So, for example, this shows what it could be done in terms of a banquet style of the two different rooms. Of course, one room is larger than the other room, but they can each be used independently because they have their own bathrooms, their own prep kitchen, their bride rooms, groom rooms, all that kind of stuff, or it can be used in combination. It can also flex into 3 spaces. So it has a retractable wall that can go out, so now it can be used for 3 different spaces, whether that be for banquets, continuing education, because it'll have multimedia possibilities on 2 different walls on that, on the big room. It can be used for concerts, for example. This shows what it would look like if it was just in terms of chairs and so forth. Knock wood, and I hate to even say this out loud, but we have been blessed with good weather for all of our concerts. This would allow, though, for it to have indoor venues in the wintertime or to be able to use in case we do have a storm. Once again, showing how it can flex in different ways. This is what it would look like from the outside. Once again, you'll see the similarities in terms of building materials from the pavilion as well as the other event center. This is the lobby area where you can see where it can be used as 2 separate, or you can pass through. It also, one of the things that in doing the research, we know that this would be a great venue, for example, for ceremonies, for weddings and so forth, as well as, you know, corporate retreats. We put a water feature out there because it allows for not only beautiful pictures, but also a chance to kind of decompress. This is what the interior of the main room would look like. This is certainly designed to be something that is lasting, something that would be beautiful, that Sherwood could be proud of now and in the future. Here's an example of what it could look like in terms of a ceremony space. These are just mock-ups of, you know, there'll be a bridal changing room, a groom changing room, and so forth. This is what it would look like from behind, where you can see the water features where you walk out, what it would look like at night. If you pull back from a drone, this is what it would look like. Beyond would be Maryland, so you're looking at the back of the multi-use event center. It would overlook the forest. We are able to utilize the beautiful terrain and forest that we already have, because as the Chamber of Commerce so proudly gave us the motto of close to the action, but far from the noise. You can be in downtown Little Rock in 20 minutes, and yet it feels like you are out in the country and away from everything. That's what makes this unique and highly sellable for events. That is the presentation. We can begin the questions.
Okay, these are the questions that were submitted ahead of time, and the panelists have prepared their answers. The first one will be for the mayor, and that is, what was the process of deciding on the projects in the initiative?
Yes, so last November we had an election, and with that we had 3 new council members. We had 3 contested of the 4 races, but I know that the uncontested race, that council member did go and visit with residents. Even our veteran city council member, I know she walked more than anybody else, door to door, meeting with residents and so forth. I certainly did when I ran for mayor. And with those are your representatives who really have a pulse on, you know, what is the community saying their needs are. So we met January 18th and had a workshop. And in this, we discussed the possibility of doing a rededication of the existing sales tax and bonds, and what kind of projects would we want to put out to everyone. And so the majority of the city council members, and everyone was in attendance, was a new animal shelter. So check, we had that on the list. Then the consensus was that we needed to focus on projects that paid us dividends by bringing in revenue and things such as rental, but also things that would increase sales tax revenue. That's what was meant by dividends. They're not just one and done. And so lots of different potential projects were vetted and talked about. I will say that Henson Trail, the reason why we felt that that one was a really important project was because of the condition that it was in. And we really wanted to make sure that we were doing things to be impactful in different parts of the city. And that was a way of really helping to sustain property values in the southern part of our city, as well as doing things to draw people to our city in that particular part. Some of the others are certainly obvious in terms of ball fields, these two centers and so forth. And then the park in the northern part of our city is because the lack of parks out there. But certainly we wanted to try to find a way to use that park so that it can help to generate revenue. On February 9th was the first time, and it was advertised multiple times as required by state law, that the city advertised for RFQs. RFQs are requests for qualifications for architectural and construction management services. This closed sometime in March. In February at the February City Council meeting, I went over the rededication of the sales tax opportunity, went over the different projects that have been discussed, and asked the council if they were okay with me getting some projected numbers of costs and plans for the projects mentioned. I also mentioned at that time that we would evaluate the existing animal shelter to see if it would be better money spent on renovating or building a new shelter. There were absolutely no objections at that time, and I was instructed to go ahead and move forward. In March, after the completion of the RFQ process or scoring and different things that are involved with it, and for the record, I did not participate in scoring of the construction management. I did on architectural. We tried to not have everybody do the same ones, and different staff was utilized for the scoring as is typically done. In June, at the regular city council meeting, I presented the bond projects. This is where this entire presentation was first done then. We had input from audience members. Council members asked questions. And then at the end, the council approved the initiative without any dissent. The contracts for Cromwell, Shell, and Baldwin were also approved by the council at this time. And I must say, these contracts, as was stated then, do not cost the city anything. They have been working, they are doing all this for free up here unless the bond initiative does pass. At the time this passes in June, it passed in June at the city council. There was also expected to be a school board election. However, at the July 8th meeting of the school board, they voted to extend terms, eliminating the need for the November election. That's why this ended up being the only thing on the ballot.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next question is for Mr. Carney and Mr. East. Explain the construction management model and what are the benefits?
Well, Chris East, I'm the architect, but construction management is a type of project delivery that we often see on larger projects, $5 million or more. It's pretty common for any institution, whether it's a city, county, state, to use for large projects essentially. But the advantage to doing that over the traditional design bid build is that the contractor is participating during the design. So what that means is they are able to provide input during the design to make sure that there is cost control. There are thoughtful ways to make sure that products are available, that we're not going over budget, that the schedule is thought of in terms of available materials. But it's something that we most often use for projects that are similar in scale and scope to this one. I can get into the actual details of how it works, but I think I might get a factor to you.
So yeah, we're signed up on a $0 basis to be involved from the very beginning as a partner with both the city, all the different departments, and the design team to help steer things to make sure that we, in this case, actually first establish the right budget for these projects so that we can move forward and actually meet the public needs as we understand them. We work with local subcontractors that we know and do our own internal estimates, provide cost feedback. There's literally thousands of little decisions that have to be made to steer, just one of these projects forward and get it to a point where it actually has, a circumscribed limits, basically, that you know what it is and what it's going to accomplish, how long it's going to take, and what the end result's going to be. So we work to essentially make sure that the process just has the construction feedback throughout. Then we move forward. Typically, as the drawings get completed, we would go out and talk to pre-qualified subcontractors and bidders, and then actually conduct a bid process for each of the bid packages. Each of those bid packages is then carefully vetted, and we work with our design team to make sure that we've got somebody that's qualified to do good work, that everything's included, that nothing in excess is included, and that we get the best value. It really allows us to use kind of our knowledge of the local marketplace to ensure that the owner, the city, is protected and that we get good value. I think it's important also to say that the traditional design bid build process, to get that kind of feedback, you have to complete the drawings, send them out to contractors. You typically only have 2-3 weeks to look at them, to scour the market and try to get pricing. And the complete design for all of these projects would be roughly around $3.8 million. So we've kind of got to this point so that you have at least some concept, some rough budget without spending anything like that.
Right, and I just want to add, I guess, when he said construction bid packages, that's concrete, steel, electrical, HVAC, so all of those will continue to be bid separately. They will just manage it as a construction manager to make sure that those are all provided in the overall price. And then we're going to have a GMP.
That's correct. So at the end of that process, when we've gone through and we've vetted all the subcontract bid packages, and we basically take the sum of all of those bid packages, plus our bond, insurance, and our fee, which is stipulated by contract and cannot be exceeded, that's our total price, and we arrive at a GMP. In this case, the GMP is guaranteed maximum price for each of these individual projects. And that then becomes an actual dollar amount contract which we can bill against.
And the other thing I wanted to add is there are 2 separate contracts with the owner. That would be obviously the city of Sherwood, and there is no contractual relationship between the 2 of those. It's actually built into the way that these contracts are structured. Again, this is something that everybody within the state and most public facilities do, so that there is a built-in checks and balances. So as we move into construction, as we move really further into the design, we will be able to essentially manage each other's risk and make sure that we're both held accountable to the responsibilities contractually we have with the owner.
Can everybody pull their mics a little bit closer?
Even more so.
No. Brian, if you could pull yours closer. Thank you.
Okay, the next 2 questions are for you, Mr. Carney, and you may have already touched on these in your response to that one, but if you want to add anything to it, where did the pricing from all the projects come?
So the goal here is to actually arrive at the proper budget for what we feel will actually meet all of the needs for each of these individual projects. The process of doing that is working with the design team. We do kind of a component analysis of basically the square footage of concrete, steel, engineered buildings, lighting, and things like that. Then we think about individual components within those trades, like access control, TVSS, security systems, building management, all the things that may or may not be needed, and evaluate those on a cost-benefit analysis, try to arrive at the appropriate budget for each. So to answer your question, we've involved numerous local subcontractors that have had input just kind of on a good faith basis to tell us what they think it's going to run. Some of those numbers we used, some of those numbers we didn't. But then we also do unit price analysis and make an overall judgment as to what we think the appropriate budget for each part of the project is.
Okay, yeah, the next question was, will the elements of the building of these projects be put out for competitive bid? And will this information be made available to the public?
So the way this works it's under an A-133 contract, we would open those bids privately so that we can vet each bid to make sure that everyone has included everything in the specifications, everything in the drawings, everything that's required on the site, everything that's required by the schedule, everything that's required by our contracts. That's really important because that prevents a lot of the problems that you have in traditional design bid build projects. Once those are tabulated, there's a thing that we just call a bid tab for each of those trades. You'll see that the initial bid, any adjustments that we've made, any modifications that they may have needed to make, and that's leveled out at the bottom line that each person is apples to apples at that point in the bid tab. Those bid tabs are typically sent to everyone who has bid the project, so if you're a pre-qualified bidder, you'll get a copy of that, and they're available to both the design team and the owner. They're not published because some of that information is not something that a subcontractor may necessarily want to be issued, but it is available to anyone who has a true vested interest.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next few questions are for you, Leanne, with Stevens Incorporated. Has Stevens worked with other cities that have used sales tax to secure bonds for capital improvements involving quality of life projects?
We have. Good evening, everyone. My name is Leanne Burnett with Stevens, as he mentioned, and we have actually ranked nationally in our work on sales tax bonds. So I can give you a list, just some ideas of different projects that were funded. Probably one that you're all familiar with if you drive to Hot Springs on your left. The city of Benton approved a sales tax for the River Center, which is a sports and recreation facility. Bryant, the city of Bryant, passed a sales tax and issued bonds for park improvements, as did the city of Cabot. Conway did a community center. The city of Fayetteville did a cultural arts corridor, trail improvements, as well as park improvement projects. City of Hot Springs, the Mid-American Museum improvements. The city of Pine Bluff did their aquatic center. So those are just a few examples.
Okay, one of the questions submitted is what happens to any monies not used?
So I would be happy to meet with anyone individually to go through the details of bond issuance. I would like to start by saying when you hear the word bond, and we talk to people all over the state, and actually we have offices in other states, and it seems as if when I say the word bond, I see eyes just glaze over. So to make it just something you might be able to relate to, a bond is a loan. But instead of the bank making the loan, there are investors who are buying the bonds that provides that money for the city projects. And so the question is, what happens to any monies not used? So we go and we sell your bonds to investors. That money goes to a bond trustee. Because if you can imagine, that investor wants to make sure they get paid. And so the bond trustee is the keeper of the funds, both to disperse for the construction projects and to receive the sales tax collections from the state, which will go to repay the investor. So if the bonds are sold, the investor gives the cash to the bond trustee disperses the funds for the project, and there's unspent funds. The documents specify those funds have to be used to pay off the bonds.
Okay, this is somewhat similar. What oversights are there going to be to make sure that this money will only go to these projects?
It's a great question, and honestly, that is one of the things that I like about sales tax-backed bond issues. In the state of Arkansas, voters have to approve what the bond proceeds will be used for that are being repaid by any kind of tax, whether it's a sales tax, a hamburger tax, A&P tax, or a property tax. And so in order for those bonds to be lawfully issued, the proceeds have to be used for the purposes voted on by the people.
Okay. if number one, the rededication passes, but either number two for the parks or number three for the animal shelter does not, will all the bonds be issued?
No, bonds can only be issued for what the voters approve. So you have to approve number one in order for 2 or 3 to occur, but 2 or 3, either, if only one's approved, that's all the bonds will be issued for. The other ones will not be issued.
Okay. So if the parks and or animal shelter passes, but the rededication does not pass, what happens?
Nothing, no new bonds can be issued.
Okay. Can the bonds get paid off faster if more sales tax revenue comes in than expected?
Yes, and this is actually another reason I like sales tax bonds. As the sales tax grows, that bond tax is 100% dedicated to the repayment of those bonds. And that's another reason why, you know, these investors who buy these types of bonds, you have to kind of understand that, right? Because it's different than, say, your house payment or your car payment where you make a scheduled payment. Typically, you don't prepay those. Sales tax bonds with a dedicated tax are expected to pay off early.
Okay. What determines the amount of interest paid on the bonds?
So just like with your retirement accounts, the value of those change daily, if not minute by minute. And so basically we have what's called a financing calendar. There's steps that you have to go through in order to lawfully issue the bonds. And we will have what's called, it's basically the pricing. The day that we price your bonds, that will be the day that the interest rate is determined.
Okay, one more, and then we'll give you a break. Does this bond initiative affect Sherwood's bond rating?
So each bond issue, it depends on the security and the structure of a bond issue and how it's rated. So Sherwood doesn't have just one, rating for the city. Each bond issue is evaluated on its own merits. And my experience with the city of Sherwood, and quite frankly, how we structure all of our bonds at Stevens, it will be investment grade.
Okay. A few questions regarding the animal shelter, and this is for Mr. East and Mr. Carney. The mayor kind of mentioned it in passing a while ago. Why not just renovate the existing animal shelter?
Well, I'll start with that. So we studied renovating the existing animal shelter, and ultimately the reason that we moved to a different site is because it was more cost effective to move to a different site. Now, the reason for that is really all site related. So first, due to the growing needs of your community, the number of kennels needed to grow. In addition to that, the way that the actual building operated needed multiple entrances, and right now they don't have that. Everything comes in through the front door, which caused a couple of other problems. But what that means is we really needed to have a back entry drive, and when we studied putting in that back entry drive, because of the site being on the edge of a hill, right next to a neighborhood, next to a creek, a lot of infrastructure costs have to go into just site improvements, and that means retaining walls, that means additional remediation to the site, as well as the existing building itself is in bad shape. If you've had a chance to go there, I recommend you do see it for yourself. But there was not much that was salvageable for a way to meet really the current standards of the Association of Sheltered Veterinarians.
Yeah, absolutely. We looked at renovating the existing facility. The layout, it's grown kind of organically throughout the years. It does not lend itself well to a coherent plan. It doesn't lend itself very well to inside-outside dog kennels, which is something I think we'll talk about later. Also, just the act of renovating that facility, because it's grossly undersized now, you would have to shut down individual areas, which is only going to increase it's going to make it more difficult to continue to operate for the year it would take to renovate it. It would end up being essentially more expensive, partly because of that. So then we looked next at building another building on that facility just behind it, so that we could, keep the existing facility in operation while we did that process. The problem is mainly the topography of that site. That design would actually have had 12-foot tall retaining stem walls around the east side of the building. It added a lot of cost. It also has a creek on the south side, which is a waterway of America. In order to bring those grades up so that you have that back entrance to allow private drop-off from the officers, you would have to build a retaining wall that goes all the way down to the flow line of that stream. There's a lot of problems in terms of just liability and construction costs associated with that. It's constrained on the east side so that if you built this economically or just from a common sense budget standpoint, you never would have been able to expand it. Where the new facility is, where the facility is now located on the new site, it very much can be added onto if in 10, 15, 20 years you need to add another 20 kennels. That's highly doable. So that in and of itself is a big value. Also, the existing site, by not building there, we're retaining the use of the other existing public works facilities that we would have had to demolish.
Okay. That kind of ties into the next question. Why was the site chosen, and was a feasibility analysis of building costs done? Sounds like you covered that.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at it multiple ways. There's a lot of things that would go on to actually, or that make using that site more complicated. I would say that if anyone is really concerned about that, we can set up a time and I can meet you there on site and physically show you how that topography works, why it's constrained on both the east, south, and north sides, and then constrained by the existing shelter on the west, and just the logistical reasons why that wasn't a good choice.
Yeah, multiple other things,
Right.
everything from parking to, they just had been added on to multiple occasions, so there were so many code violations, it would take quite a bit to be able to just bring it up to existing codes ready to shelter beds.
Thank you for explaining that. The next question is for you as well, Mr. East. What went into determining the design of the shelter?
Well, that's a great question and one that I would love to elaborate on as much time as I have. But ultimately, what the goal of this new shelter is to provide a healthy place for the animals to be adopted, and then also encourage adoption. So they wanted a welcome facility to be able to essentially do that. They needed something low maintenance and highly heavy duty. These facilities are 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So it's almost like you need to think of them a little bit as hospitals. So they need to be able to be cleanable. They need to be have a lot of natural light. Each one of the different animals has specific needs. So such as the dogs, they need to have an area indoors and outdoors. They need to have a comfortable area to play and sleep. They also have to have an area to go to the bathroom. We have things in it such as sloped floors, separate drains, all of these things we put in there to make sure that we control any sort of cross-contamination, potential cross-contamination. They have separate HVAC systems, smaller but separate HVAC systems in case something does happen in one area, it won't pass to another. It has a separate entrance for animals that have been taken off the street and they need to come into the back. We don't want to bring them into the front, whether they're sick or aggressive. We don't want them to be next to the other animals, and we certainly don't want them to be next to any potential adoptive parents. Let's see.
Probably solid.
Okay. The next 4 questions are for you, Captain Hartman. Since this is going to be a larger shelter, does this mean that we will need more employees to operate it?
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Captain Jamie Hartman with the Sherwood Police Department. I'm Captain of Support Services, and part of my scope includes the animal shelter facility itself and staff. The short answer and basic answer to that question is no. Because it's going to be a new state-of-the-art facility that follows the newest, most up-to-date protocols, not just trending within animal shelters themselves, but also based on recommendations from veterinary staff, other staff, directors throughout the state at different facilities. That is going to lend itself to being a more efficient space that will be easier to clean. The current facility has been renovated a number of times, and a lot of the materials that are just there for construction purposes, whether they're original or add-on, do not lend themselves to the wear and tear of sanitation that's needed on it, sometimes multiple times a day, daily basis. So,
Okay. Will the number of kennels designed be sufficient for our community?
Because I was surprised by this, but when Captain Hartman, could you explain like what the actual process is
our current
to clean?
protocols?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
versus what it would be, because that was very telling.
So currently, to give a basic rundown of our sanitation process for dog kennels, for example. So we don't have any outdoor runs that are attached within our facility, so we basically have to take each animal individually from its individual kennel, walk it throughout our facility, walk it to an outside kennel area, secure it, and then we do that kennel by kennel by kennel. If we don't have enough outdoor kennels, then we can't clean the entire facility all at once. So we have to do it in stages. So maybe the upper deck, the first row of kennels, and the second row of kennels, and then we have to wait and do the lower deck. So the process is, we'll go through, we'll spray down with hot water, excuse me. We go through with scoop solvents. Because of our drains, they can't support dense material going through the drains. It's a very old system, the pipes are very narrow, and that can't be fixed or retrofitted without going through a large amount of construction and cost, if it would even be feasible. So we go through and we scoop each individual kennel, then it's sprayed down with hot water, then it's sprayed down with a sanitizing product. The one that we use is pretty caustic. It has a pretty heavy odor to it. So again, that's why the animals can't be inside the facility while we do that process. We let that sit for a specified time, and then while that happens, we check on animals outside, again, because we have to go back and forth. Then we come back through and we spray the kennels down again with water to make sure all of that sanitizing product is cleaned away. And then again, going either one row at a time for a total of 3 rows, 4 rows, with 2 of the other kennels that are a little bit larger. And then that doesn't even include our quarantine area. In between, cleaning inside and outside, so if we have to bring dogs back in before we can start on the lower deck or the lower set of kennels, we have to sanitize that entire outside process the same way I just described. So we do that to, again, cut down and prevent any cross-contamination as much as possible by spread of solids or excrements from the animals.
And they don't drain either, so they have to
Correct.
squeegee the floors as
Correct.
well.
The fall of each individual kennel is not, and the building is settled as well, so while it may have started out to where it would drain back towards the drain, the water would flow back towards the drain, it does not. It collects against the walls, and so you are fighting against yourself to get it to where it needs to go, to get that area dry, so that it can be toured by potential adoptive parents.
What would the new process be?
So the new process, with the materials that would be utilized, we wouldn't have, obviously, as many concerns for repair or maintenance. But even though the facility would be a lot larger, it would still be a much more efficient process because of the design considerations that have been taken into that facility and placed in that design. It would shorten the process. And again, I think a large part of that's going to be because of the inside-outside runs for dogs. And again, when we talk about cats, they're going to have an outside space as well. So they'll be able to be relocated while their specific areas are also sanitized, because we do cats the same way.
Very helpful. Will the number of kennels and the design be sufficient for our community?
Yes. So currently, we're sitting at 24 regular dog kennels, 4 quarantine dog kennels, 4 cat rooms, with no dedicated spaces for things like a surgery room, a grooming room, or adoption rooms for visitation or adoptions to take place, or even decompression time with the animals. With the new facility, it's going to be almost doubled for dog kennels. It'll be 40 regular dog kennels, and that's going to be indoor and outdoor. So that's going to be a really, really huge thing. not only for the staff, but really also for the health and welfare of the animals themselves. It's gonna cut down a lot of stress, and stress-related issues that we tend to see. There'll also be, double the amount of quarantine kennels with 4 quarantine kennels and then observation kennels. And then 5 cat rooms and 5 outdoor dedicated catios with an additional quarantine room as well for the cats. And there will also be those additional dedicated spaces for the surgery room, the grooming room, and then separate entities or areas for cats versus dogs. And I think another big thing to look at is the way that our facility is currently, you can't get from one area without going through the other. So if you're wanting to go and look at one set of animals, you have to walk through cats. So let's say someone's allergic to cats, they're gonna have to be exposed to that potential allergy. And same thing with dogs. We can't get the dogs out to an area without bringing them through cats. So it may stress the cats out, and the dogs as well, if they're reactive. So it's just another consideration.
Okay, I'm gonna combine these next 2 questions, so we can keep moving along. Where did you get the best practices for an animal shelter from, and did you talk to other shelters to get advice?
So I'll speak to that if that's okay first, and if there's any additional follow-up. So in looking at best practices, we absolutely talked to other shelters. We talked to several sister facilities. I talked to them myself personally, the directors at several sister facilities. I've toured several of the sister facilities to get an idea of what it would take to have one of the most up-to-date facilities that would be the best for not only our community, but the animals that we care for there. And then in looking at the project planning, there was absolutely the ability for input and consideration for all of that really valuable resources, or information from the other resources that we looked at.
Mr. Carney, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, Chris?
I think it's just important to add that we did work with the entire staff at the existing animal shelter, and we are following standards from Association of Shelter Veterinarians, which is essentially the gold standard of how these facilities should not just be designed, but also operated.
Thank you. Moving to the parks questions, these are for you, Mr. Callaway. Why do we need to improve our ball fields?
I think there's multiple reasons we need to improve the ball fields. One, the fields themselves are out of date based on what we see at our surrounding cities. They're inefficient. We prep the fields often for games that don't take place. We spend money on fields prepping them that don't, the games don't take place. We use chalk, we do paint, we spend countless man hours dragging the fields in preparation for games that will rain out. But that's stuff that we have to do in order for our kids in the leagues to be, have an opportunity to play. Our dugouts there's several places in the dugouts that are, cracking and falling down. The fencing is pretty much original to back when I moved over to that field about 34 years ago as a player. So I've had a unique opportunity, and I'll talk about my experiences a lot. When I was about 11 or 12, we moved from the old facility that was over off of Kiel, and we came over to, over where it is now. And we had the top of line fields. We hosted all kinds of national and state tournaments. The fields were phenomenal. Our crew does the best that they can right now to make sure that they're maintained to the best of their ability. They really go above and beyond to make sure that the kids that we have sign up for our leagues get to play. Then you factor in tournaments that come to our facilities. This weekend, due to rain, we had 40 overtime hours to prep the fields for the Sunday tournament. Doesn't sound like much, but when you factor in the fact that they had already worked their 8-hour shifts, we kind of outmanned as far as the number of staff that we have. It's a difficult process to prep for tournaments that teams have paid for to come participate in our fields, and we can't always accommodate that. That is problematic. It's problematic for us as the city, expecting, you call it 2,400 visitors to our city in a tournament. If we have 40 teams, roughly, you've got about 2,400 people that will come to the city. If it's a 2-day tournament, you could potentially have people that are staying in hotels that may not participate in their tournaments based on the fact that we can't hold a lot of rain. I think that there's just so many reasons that we need to, and I think the fact that we would be able to, if we go to turf, probably answer 2 or 3 in one. That's just kind of out of ramble. But if we go to turf, we'll be able to avoid a lot of rainouts for our league kids. Tournaments will be able to be more efficient, be able to be handled more, and we will expect 15 to 20 tournament events from a tournament director that I spoke with today coming to our town if we turf the fields. So.
Yeah, that kind of addresses the next question. How will improving our ball fields generate revenue?
Actually, tournaments is one thing, but I think we'll also have the ability to bring more kids to our leagues. League is very important to me. We recently brought that into Parks and Recreation. We're still trying to find a way to continue to grow that league. If you look at the numbers right now, a lot of our league is not necessarily Sherwood residents. So we're still bringing in a lot of kids from surrounding cities to our league. One of our neighbors does not have a league. They don't have enough participation, so we have them coming to us. We do have kids that go to other cities that are have turf fields because they know that they're not going to deal with the rainouts by the time the parents have picked them up from school or after school programs. They're going to, they got to make a drive to get to the games. I think that it's gonna do wonders for the hotels that we have. Especially if you're bringing 40 to 60 teams, tournaments. We'll have rentals have already gone up through tournament teams and individuals wanting to rent the facilities. So if you throw turf on there, it's going to dramatically change the way we operate out there.
Okay, how will improving our ball fields affect future operations, including maintenance costs?
I think the maintenance cost goes down probably about approximately $50,000 to $60,000 a year just in ground maintenance from the products that we don't have to purchase. But the big cost savings is going to be with staff and the fact that we're going to be able to multi-purpose, the time that they utilize out there prepping the fields. They spend 4, 5, 6 hours a day prepping the fields for games. That's just the infield size. They still got to maintain the grass and things of that nature. But if you factor in per person the amount of time it takes to prep those fields, softball fields are, it's a lot harder on the softball fields because there isn't the grass, so it's all dirt. It's rough. But strictly between the products that we won't be having to purchase anymore, you're looking at $60,000 roughly in savings per year, and you're looking at the ability to utilize our staff in other ways, and so we do a good job in Parks and Rec of having our staff work different locations if they can. We believe in teamwork, so it's going to be awesome to see if these projects go through, how efficient we will be with our staff that we have. So.
Okay. Shifting gears to the Sports Event Center, do we currently have a need for indoor basketball and volleyball courts?
Absolutely. For the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years in our basketball program, we've had to turn kids away. Just speaking for our program alone, that we run as the Parks Department. The reason we got to do that is because we have the one gym. Now you factor in the fact that we're hosting, we have volleyball leagues there finally, starting last year for the first time. They've been trying to get in our facilities for a long time, they're finally there. Pickleball's growing, so that's another sport that needs gym time. They want to come in there and play. We just have the one gym for all this. The Rolling Razorbacks utilize our facility. The sports facility would be advantageous for us as the city because we can, with all the courts that you saw up there, we'd be able to set it up in multiple ways to where it accommodates so many different things. That's not only that, the tournaments that would come in as well. So.
When deciding on this facility, did you talk to other facility managers and or parks directors and people in these sports fields, and did you look at different facilities?
Absolutely. We toured, I believe we had all council members present as well when we toured a couple of facilities. We went to Cabot, we went to Benton, and it's pretty neat seeing the stuff that's already done because as you talk to some of the directors and facility managers, they kind of highlight things that they would have done differently. So we had a lot of opportunity to ask things that, what would you have done differently? And a lot of those things were implemented in the plans that we have right now. A lot of it was seating arrangements or the ability for people in between games to have a location for them and their team to hang out. We were able to pick their brains quite a bit and be able to find out quite a bit of information as to what they did differently and how we would like to do things ourselves. So.
Okay. How will this facility operate?
We talked with Cabot, and they have currently 5 full-time employees. They have a facility manager, they have 2 programmers, they also have 2 maintenance, janitorial type staff, and some part-timers that fill in. If we are as successful as we think we would be, we would need a facility manager. We would also probably want, we've got 2 programmers currently that can step in and fulfill those roles. It's something that we're gonna have to look at, but I feel like with the amount of time saved out of the ballpark, that the janitorial staff probably would not be necessary.
Okay. What are different kinds of events that could occur in this facility?
Different tournaments. I tell you what, I'm gonna speak from experience from my son, who's a sixth grader. We go to Cabot quite often. They do 3-on-3 basketball tournaments, and while he's doing the 3-on-3 basketball tournaments, they'll have volleyball lessons, volleyball clinics, and things going on that side. Then a few courts down the way, you'll see people in there playing pickleball. So you can host multiple tournaments at one time, depending on registration. You can host large tournaments. Volleyball is huge. I have no idea how huge it is. I just typically am in the baseball world with my son, and volleyball is phenomenally growing. It's continuously growing, and just like the baseball, it is here to stay, and it's going to be something we really need to be a part of with drawing in people to our community. So,
Okay. You mentioned Cabot. One citizen has asked, since Cabot already has a similar facility, is there really a demand for another like facility?
I think what we've seen on our baseball and softball side of it, and with conversations that we've had with people within the volleyball community, absolutely. The reason why I say that it's absolutely is because with baseball and softball, what we've seen is Cabot has a lot of tournaments already on their turf, but the number of teams, they can't house them all, right? So they have X amount of fields. Well, we have the ability to take overflow right now. We've also talked with a tournament director today, like I said, that would like to commit to having 15 to 20 events with us per year at the baseball, softball. The other side of it is, not only are they willing, they want to commit to it, we're on their schedule. It's been years since you see Sherwood on a schedule for hosting our own tournament, or being host to our own tournaments. We're on the books for 5 right now in the spring, where it's not a combination of another city, it's us. So, we went from, in 2023, I think we had 3 youth tournaments. Last year we had 11. This year we had 19 youth tournaments.
And I would like to add to that, because I spoke to the Cabot Parks and Recreation Director yesterday, and they are very excited to go back to, the volleyball end. There are more volleyball needs than there are facilities, and it's ever growing. We have multiple clubs, huge clubs, just right here in our area. And what he was really excited about is now between Cabot and Sherwood, we can now recruit large regional national volleyball tournaments, where Cabot by itself couldn't do that, Sherwood by itself couldn't do that. But he expressed the fact of that's huge money. All those people are spending the night. They're all eating out. That's not some are, able to run back and forth between home. But that's just an example of how you can expand the opportunities in terms of bringing groups and so forth in. And also, I know Blake's talked about even things like, 3-on-3 basketball tournaments. There's any number of things we could do. Cabot even does trade shows. So, we can host trade shows, wrestling tournaments, and that's another growing sport. You've got, certainly, as I mentioned before, it can flex into any number of things, but also you have, and those are typically weekend things, but during the week, you have the ability to rent out courts for, different groups that want to practice, or, come in and utilize a specific court, whether it's, for private lessons or any number of things. And so they do rentals and day passes and things such as that.
Okay, Mayor, this next question is for you. Do any of these new facilities take away the trail of lights?
No. Some of the things that have been online, no, as a matter of fact, and they can all verify, we went through great pains to make sure that none of this would do anything to inhibit our trail of lights. That is something that is important to our city. That is a draw. We definitely wanted to make sure that we could be fully operational and have our trail of lights.
Okay. Shifting gears for the replacement of Sherwood Forest here, was this existing facility evaluated for repurposing, either the sports event center or multi-use event center?
So this is about a 48, 50-year-old pre-engineered building. It's kind of nearing the end of its useful life. The base spacing, the size, and especially the vertical height don't lend itself to a multi-use sports facility at all. It really would not work for basketball or volleyball. It's not really designed in a way such that it can be marketed in a competitive way to new multi-purpose facilities. It's not going to lend itself as well from an aesthetic standpoint as what we've designed. But I think it's really important to see it in terms of the whole. Because we're moving forward or in the overall program looking at the multi-purpose sports facility, that is a much larger building that needs to be sitting more or less right where this is because it's at the top of the hill. So that's going to minimize your cut and fill and make the overall site development less expensive by putting it here. The new multi-purpose facility can be designed in such a way that it can be used in multiple configurations and designed to fit the contour of the topography over just to the north, which is actually going to make it even more aesthetically pleasing and allow you to have kind of view of the woodlands between here and the ball fields. So.
Okay. Mr. Callaway, this one is for you. Please describe the circumstances that have led to this building's current condition.
I've spent a lot of time in this facility over the years, 30 plus years with the city. It is an older facility. When the city bought it, I mean, it's 48 years old, built by an individual. The plumbing issues that we have had have been as a result of how they plumbed it up, not necessarily what we could do to fix their plumbing issues that they put, in the metal roof ceiling. You've got foundation issues as you walk. If you walk around the facility, you can see right now that there's multiple layers and levels to the facility. There was garage doors all around this facility. I think what we've done is a decent job of trying to make sure that we can still function and it holds the value that we have it as. But it is it's a rough facility to have, it's a rough facility to maintain, it's a rough facility, and we have a tremendous facility manager that does a wonderful job trying to, maintain the best that we can and to sell the facility when somebody comes in wanting to rent it. I often say it's past time for this facility not to be here, and that's still my stance. However, this is what we have because it's been here 40 some odd years, and we didn't build it. We didn't build it.
And I'd like to add to that. I mean, the plumbing's not underground. The plumbing is in a space that is under a metal roof. So you've got constant condensation because of how it was designed from the metal roof. You have difficulty in terms of keeping those pipes from freezing because of where they're located between a metal roof and it's a space, it's close to the metal roof. So no matter how much you insulate it, we've tried, you still have pipes that burst every year, which causes quite the mess. The foundation's literally cracking in many different places. I don't know how it was built. I don't know if they used footings or not. Once again, this is a building that that wasn't built to necessarily last 48 years. You've got flat roof. Adequate heating and air was never put in on the front end. And so we've just, over the years, tried to make shift and do the very best that we could with what we have. But the fact of the matter is, at some point, you end up kind of throwing away money, just, constantly trying to repair it. Chloe made an analogy, about a car, at some point when everything keeps going bad and bad and bad and bad, at some point it actually is better to buy a newer car than it is trying to just limp along something else.
I agree with you, Blake, on the excellent job the facility manager is doing. Katie does.
Phenomenal. This place has not looked this great in a
That's
very
right.
long
She
time.
does a good job. And she wasn't even born when this place was built.
That's right.
Okay, Mr. East, what are some of the important design features of the new proposed facility?
Okay. Well, it's been mentioned before, but flexibility is really built into the DNA of this building. They want to make sure that it has the ability to be used simultaneously for basketball, for volleyball.
I talking about the other one, not this one, but the multi-use event center.
Oh.
The replacement of the Sherwood Forest.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So, again, flexibility is really one of the main tenets of that. We have designed it so that it can be used for banquets, for receptions, for large concerts, and it can have, it has the ability to be split up in multiple different ways. So half the building can be used while the other half can be shut off, so you really only have to operate one side of it. You can operate it all at the exact same time, or you can take half of that and split it again yet in half to be able to have all of these different opportunities for different flexible sizes, flexible uses, multiple meetings at the same time. Also, one of the, I think, most interesting features that we've tried to build into all of the architecture here is to be able to create a campus feel, to really make it look like it is a cohesive design. And the inspiration of that is the pavilion, which is right next door. And it was important for us to maintain as much of the character of this site as possible, and really, I think, turn it into something that reflects the sort of values of what a Sherwood Forest actually would be. Additionally, Brian mentioned before, we took advantage of, as much as possible, the existing topography of the site. So the building itself is located and actually designed formally to split up and have this beautiful view over the valley, which eventually does lead, of course, to the ball fields. But it was, in a sense, to try to be as thoughtful as we could about making it an attractive facility that will then obviously become a great asset and use to the community.
Okay. So for this multi-use event center, Mayor, this is a question for you. What type of events could this facility hold?
Well, and this was mentioned before, but I mean, literally, we've already had people talk to us about corporate meetings, corporate retreats, continuing ed classes, of course, and then the standards, your weddings, your banquets, your so forth. And real quick, because we failed to mention it, to go back to that sports event center, we did also, when I talked to Cabot, they sent over the numbers. I just want to make it clear they are operating in the black. They did their first year, they are their second year. So what I mean by that is all of the costs associated with running that facility, your utilities, your employees, all of that has been offset by the revenue that is bringing in. And so now they're to the point where not only is it in the black, but now it's generating up and beyond additional revenue. So I think that that's important as people, have put things out online in terms of, these things are going to be so expensive to run. That's really not what is showing to be true.
Okay. Regarding the Henson Trail, Mayor, why is this project needed and why is it important?
Well, as I mentioned before, this is a special jewel in our city. I would encourage anybody to go and walk that trail and experience it. It's beautiful, it is special, it is something that is valuable, that is important to maintain for our city. And I'll go ahead and address so it's been asked in terms of grants for buildings like these and for most of the things in which we are proposing. Sherwood does not qualify for a lot of grants because we are considered to be too affluent of a community. However, when it comes to trails, there are quite a bit of grants that are indeed available. So, and that's typically done through MetroPlan, and that's why also widening this out to make it bike ped friendly qualifies it for several different kinds of grants. So yes, of course, as always, we will be applying for, engineering and building grants and so forth. But we don't want to assume that we're going to get something in case we don't get something. So.
Okay. Regarding North Sherwood Park, does the city already own the land?
Yes, the city already owns the land. This land was originally purchased for a public works facility. Only a public works facility. Nothing else, not a shooting range, none of that type of stuff. And so we did this because we really thought that was our only real option. And then when I came into office, we basically, I brought up the fact that, it's not unusual for a public works facility to be outside or just outside of the city limits. That enabled us to expand where we went looking for it, because honestly, as our public works director said, this was never really a great site. It was too remote. And in terms of, it just takes you a long time in order to get from that edge of Jacksonville, Cato, all the way to the, Silver Creek, let's say. And without being able to take enough major roads. And not only that, but this is the area where all of our future growth is going to be. Right across from where this land is already platted a 450 home neighborhood. So with it's similar to like what you see on Oakdale with estate lots along Jacksonville, Cato, with the beautiful homes on behind it. So that's how, the land purchase came about. We already own the land, and also in the northern part of our city, when we did a park study, that was really one of the things that got brought up, is the fact that there is such a park deficit. Really from the middle of our city north, but especially in the northern part of our city. We have one small pocket park, which is at the end of a cul-de-sac. That's it. So what this does is it meets lots of different needs. So for not only the future growth, but the current residents of the northern part of our city.
Yeah, I think you addressed why it's a good location. And Mr. Callaway, what are some unique qualities about this park, and how would it generate revenue?
I think when you talk about parks, and what we often talk about in Parks and Rec, and when we have meetings with the mayor about what we need to do and how we plan our parks, we often mention the fact that, my son's in 6th grade, and what did I do when he was younger? What playgrounds did we go play at? Well, we went to North Little Rock. We went to Burns Park for the rocket slide. We went outside of our city, to go play in playgrounds. Lakewood had a little pirate ship and stuff, and a little train that you could get on and stuff. And, what we've done a good job of, and what this would allow us to do, is have people in other cities come to our parks. There's enough amenities here that a wide range of people can come up here. You can play basketball, you can play pickleball, you can go do the pump tracks, because we've talked about pump tracks for 4, 5, 6 years around the Parks Department. The sand volleyball, which not only that would be able to host tournaments. We've had people already contact us about it. This to go through, we want to have tournaments out there. which just draws more people in, yet again, to, hopefully, shop at our shops and eat at our restaurants, so.
Okay. Final prepared question before we go to other questions from you. Does passing this bond initiative mean that infrastructure improvements no longer occur? That's for you.
Absolutely not. So we have a separate street budget, which includes not only streets, but drainage and sidewalks. Every single year, we work on improving our streets, maintaining our streets, maintaining our drainage, improving our drainage. We build sidewalks every year. All those things will continue. But what this does, and this is why this was such a great concept that the city council came up with, is because when you do things to grow your sales tax base, it's not only in terms of the bond, but it brings in more revenue to the city just in your general fund as well. And so that allows for the city to be able to do that much more. So doing this doesn't inhibit us from being able to do other things. In fact, doing this will actually be able to help us do more things as our economy grows and so forth. But make no mistake, every year our Public Works Department works really hard in terms of fixing things. I've seen a lot out there about, all these homes that are flooding. So I asked for Lon to pull up some information for me. We actually have a reporting system, so we know how many homes a year actually get water inside their home. This is not about yards. Yards can get wet, yards can get soggy. We're talking about actual homes, okay? I don't know if y'all remember April 5th, we had the highest daily rainfall in our history of reported history. I don't know if it was, pretty sure it would, but anyway, 5.21 inches in one day. We had in August 7.12 inches of rain. In May we had 7.06 inches. April we had 6.43. We had 4 days of 2+ inches. We had 12 days with over 1+ inches in one day. And it's that one day that is significant with all that. We had 0 number of houses reported to have water inside the structure. Now, are things going to happen? Like I personally went out where a log had washed downstream and had clogged the drainage system that the water was flowing through under the street, which caused it to go on top of the street. Things like that are going to happen, of course. But Public Works got that log removed and so forth. When there are repetitive flooding issues, then, and we did have some of that in 24, then we work with those homeowners with FEMA. If they have maintained National Flood Insurance, then they can qualify for buyout program through FEMA. And so right now we actually have 2 different homes. We did have 3, but one opted out of it. We currently have 2 that are in that process. Now, do I wish that process went faster? Yes, but I don't control the state and federal government. But we do everything as quickly as we can and we have on our basis and follow that process through. Is our city ever going to have perfect infrastructure? Are we always going to have roads that need to be worked on or drainage that can be improved? We absolutely are. I would dare say anybody find me one city in central Arkansas that doesn't have roads that could, be better, or drainage, where they don't have some difficulties, and that's every city. But I think if you drive around our city and our roads and you compare it to our neighbors, I think you will find our roads overall are in pretty good shape in comparison to a whole lot of the cities in central Arkansas. So I say all that to say, I think that has been put out there, as a, one way to disparage this. But I do want to dispel that myth. One thing does not exclude the other, nor would it.
Okay. Thank you. That was a ton of information, and thank you to each of you for those thorough responses. At this time, if residents have further questions, or there's anything that has not been addressed and pertaining to the bond, we'd like to invite you to line up over here behind the podium, and we will hear your questions. Please, just one question, and after they respond, if you have a follow-up question, just get in the back of the line. That way everyone will have an opportunity to ask at least one question. We kindly ask that the questions remain brief, respectful, and focused on the bond initiative itself. Yes, ma'am, go ahead. Is there any way we can move that podium where they can see?
We can see. We're good.
All right, I feel
Go
like
ahead.
I'm standing in the way.
You're fine.
Okay, go ahead.
He's turning the mic on. He's turning the mic on.
They're turning the mic up. If you'll hang on just a second. Are we ready? If you want to do like a testing. No, okay. Hang on just a minute.
Should be good.
Yep, there you go. Thank you. You're live.
Hello, my name is Cordelia Smith Johnson, and Mayor, so just to be clear, the city position is that as long as the water stops at the yard line, it's not a problem. Because when people's yard floods every time it rains, there's still drainage failure, and it still affects families, property, and safety. I just want to make sure you're not calling that okay by asking residents to pay millions in other construction.
Well, and just to be clear, there are only, if a home is in a floodway or a floodplain, that is Mother Nature. There's nothing that we can do about that issue. If there is something that is a failure within the drainage system, that is different. But just to be clear, because we have homes that are in floodplain, floodway areas, because when they came into the city, they were already in those areas. And flood's in that word for a reason, unfortunately. But the problem with that is because until downstream in the wetlands ceases, then it can't cease. So it will hold water until the natural flow goes out. I know that that's frustrating, but that is, Mother Nature.
Okay, I guess what was frustrating was you saying it's okay, yard is flooding, because it still affects my home, mosquitoes, driveway messed up. It still affects me and my property that I'm paying every month. So I'm like, is that okay that you say that it's okay if your yard, because you say the yard flooding is okay, but it's not okay because it makes my driveway up.
Well, so, and just to be clear, okay, on that, by law, there are only so many things in which a city can and cannot do. And sometimes there are things that are within our purview where we can make improvements. But sometimes if it's all on private property and we don't, and there's not the easements and those type of things, then that's the situation that I am speaking of. We are always looking at ways in which we can improve drainage and where we can improve the circumstances. I just want to make it clear, though, that priority is homes. Homes is there's a big difference, and that's what I meant by that, not that, it doesn't matter. But people getting their homes flooded, that's a completely different degree than somebody who's got a wet yard.
A wet yard that still possibly cause damage to their driveway, correct?
It depends, and I just want to be clear, I don't know what circumstance in which you're talking about, and what the lay of the land is, if it's flat, if it's, it just kind of depends upon each individual circumstances, and is there a chance for it to be fixed, and is there not? We are always looking for potential ways in which we can fix it. And we do allocate money every year for that.
Okay, I just want to clarify, you said it was okay. I just want to clarify that you're not saying it's okay within your homes or your yards get flooded. Thank you, I understand that one
Yeah.
question, but I want to make sure I clarify that with her.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Thank you for helping clarify on that. Appreciate your question. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Charlie Harmon with the 601 Club Road, 60-year resident of the city. Little setup for my question. In 2016, we passed ordinance 2110 for $5.5 million of bond issues for the Parks and Rec Department. The ballot title in that question said that we will spend, the money will be used for improvements to the city's public parks. And at that time, the Parks and Rec Department and the A&P Commission went on a road tour, if you will, all over the city. And we had 6 or 8 meetings that were attended by Parks and Rec personnel as well as the A&P Commission, where they said, here are the projects we're going to do, here's the order we're going to do them in, and we're going to do them until the money runs out. And that's what we did. So there was a commitment in how it was going to be done. 2 years later, in 2018, ordinance 2192 was passed for $38.5 million for the road system. In that one, it said the money was going to be spent for improvements, betterments, extensions, etc., including but not limited to, and then listed specifically what the money was going to be spent on. Bridges, facilities, pipes, stormwater discharges, detention facilities, etc. This ordinance, which I was not able to get a number on because I couldn't find it in the city's searchable database yet, the signed version of the ordinance, but this ordinance that was passed by the city council on question 2, I have no objection to question 3 regarding the animal shelter. And currently I intend to vote for question 1 and question 3 for the animal shelter. But on question 2 regarding the parks, it says the purpose of financing all or portion of the cost of acquisition, design, construction, equipping of certain park improvements, which may include a multi-purpose event center, a sports events complex, athletic fields and facilities, playgrounds, trails, picnic areas, pavilions, land acquisition, open space preservation, and other recreational facilities. There is no obligation in this ballot title and in this ballot question to spend that money on any of these facilities, none whatsoever. It says may.
I will say that when
My question, your question, why did we use may? And is this a legal ballot question? As Arkansas law judge whether the use of the word may is obligatory enough for a sales tax question.
Yeah, go ahead, and then I'll also, we'll also tell them what the attorney expressed in terms of obligations.
Sure, so as you know, former council member Harmon, I am not an attorney, but we have worked with a lot of cities on sales tax issues. And I will tell you that a different bond counsel drafted this than the other two that you were looking at. I will say this is not unusual, the use of may versus shall. I think in question 2, the reason why you almost had to use may is you are listing so many items. For example, trails is included. If the word shall was used and grant money was obtained by the city for trails, it would not matter because shall was used. So therefore, you shall use these proceeds for these items, including trails, even if grant proceeds were received. So I really think it was just the extent of the items that are part of this project.
And also when I spoke to the attorney, we are obligated not just by that language. We are obligated by whatever the city has published and presented. We are held to that. And that I was told that over and over again. Always be careful with exactly what is published and what you present because you have to do that legally. So I think that is part of it also. But I do think that that's why we had the flexibility in that so that we said we were doing Henson Trail. If we get grant money, I'm not going to turn around then and do another trail. It's for that particular thing. So that was why, if we had shall in there, I would have to.
Well, again, as a lawyer, you could spend $1,000 of the bond money on a trail somewhere and you met your obligation. But one of the issues I have is your release of information. You talk about the information that we let out, the information we let out. That's another issue I have is you've released so little information. The first release you did of information on this project was done at a chamber meeting where you charged $15 a head to get in. The whatever, I forget what this thing is called, something Sherwood. Reimagine Sherwood meeting at the chamber meeting was at a chamber meeting where that was charged for admission. And I mean, that's not, is that how you release public information? There's a few of these town hall meetings, as opposed to how the last parks thing was done, where, meeting after meeting after meeting in different parts of the city where people can get the information.
So I will say, in terms of the intent of that meeting was for the whole video to be able to put that out there, but we had some technical difficulties in terms of that. We did follow the same format as Cabot, where we put out on the website the question and answers. I have been at 2 morning things. I've been at ball games. I've been at volleyball games. I have, we've done this. I've been at evening things, weekend things, out where I've been out where the public is to try to meet them, as well as having planned events. It wasn't about being exclusive. There's no charge to go to a concert, to Night to Unite, to come to Coffee with the Mayor. You even get coffee while you're there for free. Coffee with a Cop, once again, we were there. Different part of town. I've been at the Sylvan Hills volleyball games. I've been at football games. We're at junior high football games. We are out where the public is. And I will say, with the street one where we did a couple of different town halls, I know that the one I attended was well attended. So just because you have those things, we have gone up and beyond in terms of with this. This is not only just a town hall meeting, it's live streamed. It's available for viewing. Our city council meetings are now, of course, live streamed. Also available for video as well. I just think in today's day and age, it's difficult for people to make time to come to things, which is why we try to do things at different times of day, weekday, weekend, different locations and so forth. So although it's a different format, and I do respect, what you're saying with that, Councilmember Harmon, we have tried to utilize different forms in which to go out and do it, but we have had just as many, if not more, opportunities for people to come forward, ask questions, and I don't even know how many hours I've stood around at different places there in order for people to come and ask questions, as has Blake as well.
All right, well, those are my concerns. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you, appreciate you.
Thank you, Charlie. We appreciate your years of service for sure. Yes, sir.
Hi, everyone. My name is Paul Wilson, and I had a couple of questions for Baldwin Shell, possibly the architect, about this project. I just want to kind of start off with some of the experience that I had, kind of frame the question. I built the Woodland Town Center in 2018 at the intersection of 107 and Brockington. This was prior to COVID, inflation, and tariffs, and all of the things that have contributed to, well, a lot of costs that we have now. So, I built that project. It was leased 100% before we even started construction with Baldwin and Shell, and I was looking over some of just the cost per square foot that you had on there for the multi-use center, the sports facility, and everything else. Those costs per square foot, I believe, if I adjusted them for inflation compared to what I spent 5 or 6 years ago, they're not too far out of line. So, as a taxpayer, I'm pretty happy to see that. I don't feel like your costs are crazy. considering what you're building and everything else. So I was pretty pleased to see that. But one thing I did notice, and you kind of mentioned this earlier in the construction management process, we did some value engineering, and we also used a lot of local subs when we did our building. So I guess what I want to ask, is there going to be an opportunity for the city to save some money on this project for some value engineering? And also, are the subs, are they going to be local people? As far as I know, there's a qualified sub list too that you have to follow. But you know, we used a lot of local subs for ours, but we did not have to follow the same sets of rules that you probably do with the taxpayers.
Absolutely. I think that, you know, I try to kind of give an abbreviated description of the whole construction management process, but as the design progresses, right now we're essentially at what I would call a schematic design level for these projects. So it's the very first level. We have a concept for most of the new buildings, but we don't have any concept drawings for some things.
No, we don't know what the dimensions are going to be yet.
So as we progress through the process, we budget each project. We involve pre-qualified subs in that process so that they're more familiar and in a better situation, so they know what's coming and they're excited about it and they can anticipate it in their workload, which many times helps us get better pricing. To your question about value engineering, that's part of the process all throughout this entire process. I think we talked a little bit about, you know, the Animal Services Center and what we're doing to make this more efficient from an operations standpoint. Each of those items are evaluated in terms of cost as we progress forward to the next stage of design. So we've got hot water hose reels that facilitate in the facility that allow the staff to quickly wash down each area. We've got specific drains that don't allow for any cross-contamination between the kennels. We've got radiant heat in the floor. We've got overhead tube radiant heat. We've got heat trace in the water pipe that's outside under the canopy. All of those things have a cost, but they also have a value. So they're evaluated by Ball and Shell and Cromwell, and that information is transmitted to the operators, the staff that actually are involved in the design meetings to make sure that everything is value engineered to give the best end result. In terms of local bidders, we absolutely want local bidders. You know, sometimes people have a misconception that larger general contractors don't want to work with local contractors. That's absolutely not correct. We make our business creating good relationships with qualified contractors and getting the best value for our clients. It's something that we actively seek out all the time through area associations, through different venues that we have, you know, inviting new bidders to come in and become qualified.
They often have the best pricing too, because they don't have to travel.
But we want people that are part of the community that are going to be vested in the project, both in terms of just the contract that we give them, but also knowing that this is their reputation on their line, because that's more important to us than this project by, you know, infinitely more important. We want other people who have the same vested interest in making sure that this project is a success in what they perform.
Okay, thank you. I got two more questions. So what do you project will be, you know, let's assume this passes, everything is built. When do you think, how long do you think it'll be before, let's say, another business, another hotel, somebody else sees what's going on and they're like, oh, I want to be here? You know, how long do you think after all of these things are done before you might see some additional dividends?
I would say I wish I had a crystal ball and knew all that, but I will tell you, as soon as this passed the council, we had requests from multiple developers that not only build but represent, like Darden's, for example, that restaurant chain and so forth, that wanted the presentation. So we emailed those out to them, because they said it makes it so much easier to sell your city. What it does is, by bringing in all these tournaments, what you're doing is you're increasing the demand. And that's what Sherwood needs. We've got to increase the demand for your restaurants, your hotels, your retail. We are in a unique situation with Sherwood in that we don't have a whole lot of highway frontage in which to develop. Most of it was sucked up with car dealerships, and nothing against car dealerships. That was great once upon a time in terms of sales tax revenue. But then the state changed the rules and it now follows the buyer of the cars. So it really doesn't benefit us the way that it may have maybe in the past benefited us. And they treasure their land and they're not willing to sell any of it, not even a small portion of it. I've tried. So what our goal is to bring them interior into our city, because most of Sherwood, you only get to see a little bit of Sherwood on the interstate. So we need to bring them into our city. And that's where you get those restaurants and so forth in our city. So that's part of the reason why utilizing, for example, this facility. We have out parcels over here at, Walmart, for example. You also have, down at Kellogg Acres, because of the way you have everything connected, people will be able to utilize Bear Paw and DJ Hudson as well. So it helps to grow our economy that way. We already had interest, from at least one hotel chain. We've had multiple interests in terms of restaurants, both fast food and non-fast food. So can I tell you exactly when it's going to happen? No, and honestly, nobody can. But we do know that by increasing that demand, we are far more likely, and it puts us in the position. We can't build those restaurants. That's not the role of government, but the role of our government is to do everything we can, which is what we're doing, to bring them into our city, to bring that demand up. And so that's exactly what we are doing, and that's why this dividend effect is so important. I know when I walked countless door-to-door to doors, what I heard over and over and over again was, we want more restaurants, we want shopping, we want things, more activities for our kids to be able to do. So that's exactly what we're trying to do. We are trying to drive those things. And I know you are a landowner and you've got land cut and you've got a shopping center that's out there. All these things help to increase the development of Sherwood on a commercial level. And I would like to add that, we are sales tax driven. We are not like all the other communities around where we have these high millages that go to fund the city. And that's great, right? We want to keep it like that. Well, in order to keep it like that, as we grow residentially, we're not going to be able to keep up with maintaining the same level of services that we have now if we don't grow commercially, or we have to do something else. So it only makes good economic sense that we need to grow the economy, because we have so much sales tax leakage where people are having to go outside of our city to spend those sales tax dollars. We want it here.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent questions. Yes, ma'am.
I'm short, sorry. We have a constituent in Ward 2 that just sent me a question. A follow-up question to the animal shelter, and I believe Mr. Carney or Mr. East can answer this. There's been some conversations online about heated flooring in the animal shelter. Can you please explain why that is and if it's efficient?
You want to start?
Go ahead.
Well, the heated flooring is essentially there to provide comfort to those animals. I've mentioned before, health is the number one thing, besides adoption, I suppose, that we want to make sure that the animals have the ability to be low stress, be in a sort of space that is as comforting as possible. There are other ways to do it, certainly. That's where value engineering process will occur, but what we're trying to do is follow essentially current standards to make sure that it is a state-of-the-art facility.
And I might add, when we had discussions on that, and Brian, you might want to talk about the efficiency in terms of utilizing that as a way to heat versus the traditional way where it's up high and above and so forth.
Yeah, so, you know, an animal services center is kind of a unique building in that you have a doorway at every kennel. So you have a lot of what we call fenestration, so it's difficult to keep the heat in if you use conventional methods, which are forced air heat. So by using basically radiant floor heat, you use the thermal mass of the slab itself to retain heat such that it heats much more efficiently for less input of energy, and it basically heats at a low level where the animals are. So the exterior portion of the kennels as well as the interior portion, it can be heated a lot more efficiently. It also allows you kind of a more consistent temperature. You don't have big ups and downs. There's really not a good, efficient way to heat the exterior portion of the kennel either.
And could you also clarify the square footage while we're on that subject?
Yeah, so calculating square footage is not necessarily as easy as it may seem for different types of facilities, but I've talked to 2 national consulting firms that deal in animal services centers, animal shelters, and they both, by their methods, this actually calculates to right at 16,505 square feet of usable space.
And it's because of the overhangs to protect the animals on the outdoor side. So we only counted the indoor side, but for a facility like this, we need to count the outdoor as well, if that makes sense.
Okay, yes, sir.
I just wanted to ask you, did a lot of those questions that you asked, they were well written and strategic. Did any of those come in from the general public?
What, certainly in terms of, yes. And what we did is we pulled a team together. We also looked at social media, at a lot of the questions that were being, kind of thrown out there. Some of the confusion and misconceptions that were out there in terms of questions, so that we would have, be able to, not everybody, can be here. And so yes, in terms of phone calls or messaging, I don't know we got any that way, but more by the phone calls. And then as well as going through social media, trying to make sure that we were putting out as much correct information as there is out there. So that's why the questions were as they were. And also to try to do it in an efficient manner so they weren't bouncing all over the place.
Okay, so I saw on the Facebook post, you requested written questions. I was wondering how many of those came in.
We didn't receive any written questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess what I came up to say was I'm greatly concerned with the overall, and I'll call them concept costs. You guys did a great job demonstrating the concepts for these projects. And then the other concern I have, and gosh, I don't know where I heard this before, we have to pass the bill in order to see what's in it. The actual costs in the end are going to be those devil in the details, the fixtures, the furniture, the equipment, construction costs. It's like any remodel project at your house. You may overdo it on the tile and the fixtures, and then, uh-oh, I ran out of money and I can't afford a nice door. If we approve $93 million, I can guarantee you we're going to spend $93 million. Every dime will be spent. And if passed, how can we as citizens or stockholders see maybe monthly or quarterly if this passes? As you do in city council meetings with the agenda, you show the budget. Where are we with the budget? How much have we spent? And what areas are we over? Will we get to see that? Because you could be over one area and then we'll sacrifice on things like furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And I know you, and I don't remember your name, sir, the contractor. You guys are building big buildings, and I got the utmost confidence. It's going to be there for a long time, so I'm not questioning that. It's just, since we're paying this bill, I hope we get to kind of watch it and just say, hey, we're a little over here. What are we going to do? We can't go over. We can't do 93 million and 1 penny. it's gotta be 93 million or under, but it will be $93 billion, mark my words. So, but thank you for your time. And by the way, your presentations were, fantastic. Your architectural drawings were good. Mr. Blake, you have a true grasp on sports tourism, and that's what you're trying to grab, so.
And I did need to back up because Tony Frazier out in the audience raised her hands. She did submit written questions and they were included on here. So just to clarify that, sorry, Tony. But anyway, yes, if you guys will answer in terms of
I'll just sit, that's okay.
the
Probably the
project.
same answer. So construction management. You mentioned a moment ago furniture, fixtures, fees, and equipment. So that's what we typically call soft costs. So yes, soft costs are built into this, and soft costs are the equipment that you're going to use. That's your grooming equipment, that's your surgical tables, that's those sort of things. All that is built into the overall budget. But let me also say, because it is construction management, we are going to be working, if this passes, to make sure that the budget that is set is the same one that they are on the hook for having to complete. That's a guaranteed maximum price. Throughout the process, we are going to have discussions about value engineering. I mentioned floors, but really I'll pick on roofs, for instance. I will recommend designing a 50-year multi-layer modified bitumen roof. They'll price it, they'll say, no, that's too expensive. We need to use a single layer roof. So then that's how we typically go through that process. So it's built into the project delivery method versus a design bid build.
Yeah, there's a lot to say there, and I'm not sure how best to address it. I would say that right now, we have, there's multiple layers of contingency in the animal services project. There's 3 different contingencies within the construction cost. Then there's an overall contingency that's solely at the use or discretion of the city itself. So you have a safe, conservative number. That's what you want to have at this stage because there's not enough information to get too aggressive. But before, as we go through each phase of design, we go through value engineering. That's all reviewed by the design team and the city's staff that are involved in the project, and we decide which options we want to use in terms of like the roof. We may give you 3 different prices, one for a 15-year NDL, a 20-year, and a 25 or 30-year. And we'll look at different systems and how that affects other trades, because it can actually affect multiple things. We balance those and make the best decisions as each iteration of the design as it progresses. But once we get to the GMP, all of those decisions have to have been made. They have to have been approved ultimately by the city. And then we enter into a guaranteed maximum price. The contingency has been drawn way down at that point.
Right.
There's still some for unforeseen conditions that may arise during the course of construction. But that's all there is that the contractor can spend. All the rest of the money is at the discretion of the owner.
And that's per project.
That's per contract,
And that,
yes.
once that's all valued out, that thing goes before, once again, the city council. And just to be clear as well, we have SherwoodBonds.com. That's going to be a living document. And that's where we are able to provide updates on projects and as we go along and so forth. Not to mention in terms of reporting to the city council.
The discretion to the owner, that would be the mayor?
That is the
And I
government.
say that as she's our representative.
Well, it's not it's not just me. It's also the city council, right? So I'm not the one who approves the final. I only get a vote in the case that it can affect the outcome, like if it's a tie, for example. But ultimately, it's the city council who gets to make that decision. It's not me, but.
Right, okay, so then to answer my part B of the question was, if this passes, you guys will get a budget, city council. Will you release that budget to the public so we can see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then the next step is maybe quarterly, can we review that budget to make sure or just see where we're at on these projects? Are we, under, over?
Well, I certainly do think giving updates on how we're doing,
So-
how's it,
Yeah, I think that it's important to realize that once the council has approved a GMP amendment on any one of these projects, there can be no increase to that GMP without a change order that has to be approved by council. So in terms of updating the public on the progress of the job, we are more than happy to do that and do that often in school construction. We have bi-weekly or sometimes weekly, what we call OAC meetings, owner, architect, contractor. Those are meetings where we go through a specified agenda, we look at the progress on each individual contract. Each contract is gonna have a team, each project. And we're more than happy to, issue a public, kind of update on a monthly basis. I mean, I think, we recognize the importance and the level of, public interest in the project and want to accommodate that. That's something that could grow organically out of our regular meetings that we're having already.
Yeah, we just want to make sure our money's spent wisely should it go through. Thank you for your responses.
Sure, thank you
Thank
for your
you.
question. Okay, anyone else?
we finished 1 minute early.
It was 2 hours.
Oh, it was 2 hours. We only thought it was gonna be an hour and a half, it ended up being 2 hours, you are right. But we did want to make sure, you're absolutely right for those who've been sitting there, but we did want to make sure that we got all questions answered. Thank you guys so much.